Hello, Pat.
Hey there, Pearl. Welcome. Welcome, everyone, to season 2 of Town Square Talk. I'm Pat Alva-Kraker. Our show today is called Where Art Thou? Where Art Thou? We are interviewing a very special friend of ours, and we want you to buckle up and get ready for an amazing and very unique show. For those who are coming on for the very first time, we welcome you. Our show is a brainchild of the coronavirus. Pearl and I were having a discussion about the impact that our family and friends and clients, what they were experiencing because of COVID-19. And we decided to put together a show that would have an impact on the current issues, helping people transition, pivot, give them resources, and hope to deal with everything that's going on with the pandemic. And so here we are a year later. I am a business coach, speaker, and author. I work with women entrepreneurs who want to scale their companies with ease and grace. You can learn more about me at majesticcoachinggroup.com. And Pearl, introduce yourself.
I am Pearl Peng. I'm a CXO advisor, strategist, and speaker. My work can be found at my company website at benchmarkmaven.com. And today, allow me to introduce Daeu Angert, and she is actually our return guest. Daeu is a multi-talented American visual artist with raving reviews from her fans and clients. She explores the intersection of art, technology, and business through abstract art. She is self-taught and has been painting for over 30 years using her own finger painting technique. Daeu is the founder and executive producer of daeuArt channel, coming soon to Roku, FireTV, and Prime Video. She is also the executive producer and host of I Paint Ideas podcast. Welcome Daeu to Town Square Talk.
Thank you so much for having me and for having me again. I really appreciate it. It's great to be here.
Okay. So one of the things that we love to do before we get our meeting started, our talk show started, is we'd like to sit in the energy of gratitude. And so we all share what we're most grateful for. And so I'm going to start with our guest. Daeu, what are you most grateful for?
Being on the show, having this opportunity to talk about art. I'm grateful for art because it gives me opportunity to explore different things that I love to do. And for you guys, for being my friends for many years now and supporting me in all of my endeavors. So I'm grateful for you and for being here.
Thank you. Pearl, how about you?
Well, Pat, for so many years that we have masterminded together, I would share Daeu's gratitude, of course, the good health and what we have now with the opening and more an opening, sort of more promising economy. So that's what I'm really, really grateful for. Yourself, Pat?
Yes, definitely. In Texas, we are definitely opening up the economy and have an amazing opportunity to really coach a lot of women who have done a pivot in this business and are doing very well.
Mhm.
And really thankful for this group. The three of us have been meeting for many years, and we have all evolved in our businesses and personally. And just to be able to sit here in this space of celebrating of year being in this, having this show, and to really showcase Daeu's really special talent. So that means a lot to me and to Pearl as well. So before we start our conversation with Daeu, we want you to see her art. So sit back and enjoy.
Okay, let me show you. I have a virtual gallery that I will show you. So let me just get that shared here and we can walk through it. This is on show at my virtual gallery, daeuArt, and the exhibit is called 20, which is all of the artwork that I did last year. So for 2020, it's called 20. So here, let's walk through it. It's like a 3D walkthrough of the gallery. And there are 4 different collections on display here. This section here that I'm going through now is called I Paint Ideas collection. And that is my favorite thing to paint. You know, some people paint landscapes or portraits or still life, but I love to paint ideas. And I'm sure we'll talk about that more as we go through. But these are pieces that I did based on interviews with thought leaders all over the world. So, so that's one of the collections. Let me just go kind of in a circle here. I feel like a race car driver in an oval here. But the second part of the collection is inspired by emerging tech. So this artwork here, for example, is one of my favorite. Actually, they're all my favorite. I can't pick a favorite really, but this is called Acceleration of Change, or La Paloma. And I wanted to paint how it feels when you're faced with accelerated change coming at you like a freight train. And it turned out it's like dancing a tango. So, so over here, let me just close this. Over here, we have a few other pieces from that collection. This one is called In Between the Masks, and it explores virtual reality and just dealing with each other online and creating masks that we wear every day in different online interactions. And then here is my diary collection, which is about personal experiences and things that I have to work through as I go through life, like all of us. I just choose to do it through visual art. So this is another one of my favorites. It's called Indra's Net, and it's based on a Buddhist story, Indra's Net. Here is one of my favorite new adventures, which is exploring continuation of creativity that I'm sure we'll talk about later as well.
Hey, Daeu, do you mind
Yes.
zooming in to those straight lines that I have always so very fascinated to see the
Yes, I
clean
will.
lines?
I definitely will. This is how those straight lines actually started. This painting is called Wrinkle in a Dream. And it's based on this recurring dream that I had as a child of this wrinkle in what I don't know, it was more like a continuum, like a sheet of silk just moving, and then there was like a little wrinkle in it. And every time that I wanted to figure out what the wrinkle was, I would wake up and I never found what it was. So this is a wrinkle in a dream. But then I thought it's not really depicting, because my technique is very textured. It's almost like a little sculpture, and I use a lot of color. And so I wanted to depict that continuation of a dream, the recurrence, and also to smooth it out. So I did some digital work on it, starting from that original analog painting, and turned it into a digital version of it that more resembled what I saw in my dream. So you can see the wrinkles still in there in the middle, and kind of this continuum just moving, you know, the lines just moving. And then to capture the recurrence, I made different versions of it. So this is a glitch of a wrinkle. And then this one is the glitch of the first one. So you can see that movement continue on. This is the one that you like, Pearl, right?
Yeah, I just find myself getting so fascinated. I can stare at the painting and almost like slip into a meditation mood.
Yeah,
I
this
love
is like
one. This is the one I really love the most because it's purple.
I love the colors in this one.
Yeah, so this is the third iteration of it. So I start with an analog painting that you saw, the first one in the middle, and then the glitch of that was the first one. The glitch of the first was the second. The glitch of the second is the third, right? So there's like that the continuation of a dream, you know, that is recurring. So here's the fourth one. I actually made, I don't know, 20 of them, but these are the first 4. So I really like that, you know, you can take something that is analog and turn it into a digital, or like in this case on this other wall on the other side, this one is called I Love You Beautiful. And it's translation of a sound wave into a visual art form. My daughter asked me to make a painting for her room, and I said the most unfortunate thing that I could have said to her, which is, I need to be inspired. That was horrible thing to say to your child because she thought, what, I'm not inspiring to you? Like, what's happening here, right? And then the months and months went by and I didn't produce anything for her. And then she was like, Mom, what's happening here? You know? And then when I was producing my podcast, there was a little click in the audio track that was just, I could hear it. Probably nobody else could hear it, but I could hear it. So I was hunting for this little squiggly line, which was like the click of a mouse. And I was staring at these forms. And I said, oh, I get it. You know, this is what I'm going to do for my daughter, Bella. So I basically recorded myself saying, I love you, beautiful.
Aww.
And then took that heat map of a sound wave and transformed it into what you see on screen, which is an abstraction of that heat map. And it's interesting because you can see this here. I don't know if can you see my mouse? Like this first tall orange. Yeah, this is I love you beautiful. So you can really see the every syllable there. And it's kind of interesting that there are a lot of faces in there. So I've been doing a lot of kind of trying to go from one modality to a different modality. You know, from a spoken word of an interview to visual art, from analog to digital, from digital to motion, you know, from static to dynamic. And I'll show you some other examples of that. And here's another 2 sets of this analog digital combination here. This is an actual oil painting. It's 5 feet by 4 feet wide, and it's called An Artist Trapped in Nerd's Mind.
I can feel that.
Yeah, she's like, there's colors, like, you know, if you get close, you can't see it here, but if you get really close, it's cracking. Like the black is actually cracking. So there's a crack in that nerd outside, you know. And this is another thing that I started to explore a little bit more in the last, I don't know, couple of months, which is to show a point of view from inside the painting. So this is an analog proper oil painting. And then this is a digital version of it, a digital companion, I should say, where you can see the artist actually trapped. You can see my face. This is a photo of me, you know, looking up to the light. So this is a view from, you know, inside of the painting. So yeah. And then the allegiance, the American flag, which didn't start as an allegiance. We can talk about that later. It did not start as a flag. It started as something completely different.
Nice.
And let's see, I showed you this. There are a few other examples here. The superhero thinking, dedicated to Martin Scorsese after his comments in an interview about superhero movies. That they're like theme park. So I wanted to give him a superhero with revelation. Yeah, so this is one of my favorite pictures that started it all, called Max and Me. And this is Max Ophuls, the most brilliant film director ever. And that's me. And this is Max and Me.
Nice.
Yeah, so and this one is also that continuation. We should definitely talk about that, the continuation of creativity. This whole collection group started with this analog painting here called The Culture, and it was inspired by my interview with Janine Perlstein, who is a culture expert. She works with corporates on improving their culture. And so I started with this, which you can see a lot of texture the way it's here. Like in person, there's a lot more texture. And you can actually see that in these isolated details of it. This is called essential self particles, because when I interviewed her, she talked about improving culture, and it's really coming down to understanding your essential self. And I said, what is essential self? How do you represent that? And so each of these heads of these people, abstracted figures, became essential self particle. And then, so you can see a lot of texture here in these details.
Very nice.
See, and yeah, and we can talk more about that one.
Yeah, and there's more to come.
Yes. So let me stop sharing. So yeah.
Thank you. So Daeu, how did you become an artist?
I thought about that because I knew you were going to ask me that. And I don't think there is any moment in time, any like delineation to say, now I'm an artist, because I didn't go to art school. I didn't have a graduation or something to say, oh, now you know how to paint. I don't think I actually know how to paint. I started when I was 12 years old. My aunt gave me some money, and I don't remember what it was for, maybe my birthday or something. And I went across town, being 12 years old, on a public bus to an art supply store, and I got the biggest canvas I could get, and I schlepped it back home. And I thought it was so huge. But then there's a picture of it, a partial picture, and it really wasn't that big. I was just like a small child, so like short. And I got it home. I painted a picture called The Animals, and it was an abstraction of a human composition, male, female figures. And I called it The Animals because I wanted to say that people are not better than any other form of life on Earth. And so that was like a statement, but I start using brushes and I couldn't do it. It just, they got in a way of energy transfer, if that makes any sense.
Yes.
And I got so frustrated and I ditched it. And then I just started painting with my fingers. And then over time, I learned how to make really fine lines with my fingers, because when your finger is your tool, then the smallest line is your finger width, right? So you have to figure out how to navigate that. So I never looked back. I still do it the same way. So I don't think, I think there is a difference between being a trained painter and being an artist. To me, being an artist is somebody who has something to say. And you can be an artist by being a coach or a thought leader or an engineer or a writer, or, everybody is an artist with what they're creating their own version of art. It doesn't have to be, visual art or photography or, movies or something like a more creative, quote unquote, creative fields. So I feel like, and my mom actually asked me, why didn't you go to art school? How come you didn't go to art school? And now looking back, and now this, from somebody who didn't go to art school, I said, what can they teach me? You can't teach me to be an artist. You can teach me to be a painter and how to use a brush and how to mix color and how to do different things and perspective and whatever. But if you're an artist, you have an eye. You have it, like it's there. And at the end of the day, you just have to take the paint and put it on canvas. And you have to find your own process. And I think that's true for any field, really. You have to find your own process. Otherwise you're just a copy of whoever taught you what to do, right? So I feel lucky in a way that I didn't. I went to school for math, computer sciences, and cinematography, but never for fine art. Yeah.
So what a fascinating story. And in your, as you walked us through your gallery, you mentioned that you paint ideas, and you showed us some examples of that. So how did that actually come about for you?
I think that started from the very beginning without actually knowing that it's really a confluence of many things to come together. When I started with that first painting, the animals, it was just something that I was feeling. I was feeling that, you know, humans are not better than animals or plants or trees. I always felt like inclusive of the life forms, you know what I mean? And it always started with that. But what I love art for is that it allows me self-expression. And I tell people I don't paint because I want to, I paint because I need to. You know, I have the need to be creative. I have the need to figure out myself, you know, for self-expression, for understanding what's happening. Yeah, so I tell people that I don't paint because I want to, I paint because I need to, because what my painting is about is a lot of experiences, a lot of things that come across my mind, things that, you know, I read about, or you know, just different ideas that that I'm exposed to, and that's what I like to paint. And the other thing that kind of came together with that is that I do abstract art. I don't do realistic paintings. You know, I don't think I'm skilled enough to even do those. You know, so I love the fact that I can do concepts and ideas in an abstract form, the abstraction of that idea in a visual form, and I love that part. And then the last one is this umbrella effect that art gives me as a polymath, because I have a lot of different interests as a polymath, as a multi-potentialite or multi-passionate person. I have a lot of interests, a lot of ideas that I want to explore. And so what art allows me to do is to focus on something for a collection at a time. And what we usually hear, people like myself, is why can you pick one thing to be a thing and stick with it for your whole career or for your, you know, an amount of time, right? But this way I can do different things under the umbrella of visual art and still be okay, you know, and everybody still knows what I'm doing. So so I love art for that.
Good point. Interesting. It's beyond interesting, I have to say. Daeu, it's so very much a lot of depth, a lot of, you know, width with what you just showed us, and it's so very fascinating. The color, the texture, and the whole display of it, and even stories behind it. And you talk about I paint ideas. Where do all these ideas come from?
They literally come from everywhere. They come from everywhere. Like you've seen some dreams. I had a couple of paintings that I did based on the dreams that I had. Something that I read, the interviews that I did with thought leaders, which is actually my favorite. They would say something about their work or something that they just there's a word or there's a phrase, and I kind of grab onto that, and then I take it from there. I start researching it, thinking about it. I say crockpot it in my mind for a little bit. And sometimes it's a week, sometimes weeks, sometimes a month, sometimes years. You know, the first painting that you saw in that walkthrough, Stepping into the Future, which I can show you later, to get to that painting took 15 years. I mean, to make it was one day, but to get to the point of making it was like 15 years of thinking about it. And there's a whole another story about that. But it's everywhere. You know, I have on my phone, I have a note of all the ideas to make more art about. So at some point, I was afraid that I'll run out of juice. Actually, I didn't really feel it that way, but I talked to my friend about it, and she asked me that question, and I'm like, yeah, that kind of what it feels like. Are you afraid to run out of juice, is what she asked me. And I said, yeah, I kind of am, you know. And then I thought about it, and I'm like, that's not even a question. Because once you get into the creative process, right, just more ideas come, and then there's actually more ideas than you have the time. There are eons and like there's just so many ideas. There's not enough time in like
I don't
eons to do
get how
all
you
the
can run
ideas.
out of ideas from what you described.
You can't. You can't. And when I realized that, I was like, great, you know, I'm not afraid if anybody's going to steal my idea, because there's always more
Right.
where that came from, you know.
Absolutely.
And that's where
we really would love to see a couple case studies. You mentioned
exactly.
a couple already, right? So
well, let me show you Innovate or Die, because that's a good example. And let me share, and I'll share the sound as well, because we can show that. So I'll share, this is, so let me see this collection. This is an art group. Innovate or Die is an art group. It's these pictures here, and then they have a video that goes with it. Okay, so let me see if I can, here it is. So this is how it started. This is Innovate or Die proper oil painting. It's about 30 inches by 48 inches. And it was inspired by an interview that I did with my dear friend, Juliet Murphy. And Juliet is a coach and leadership coach. And she coaches millennials on how to get to get into the right job. She's a career consultant. And so we're talking about different generations in the workplace, and how the ideas that millennials bring and future generations would bring is so important for a business to incorporate. At one point, she said, "You got to do it. It's innovate or die," you know. And so I grabbed onto that Innovate or Die, and I thought about it like for a while. I think I interviewed her in the summertime, and I did this in like January. So it took maybe 5 or 6 months to get to the point where I had it in my head, because a lot of it is on feel. So I had enough in me to kind of to get the art out. And so this one is sort of a roadmap, if you will, of innovation. You know, you get some ideas here. See the orange of different ideas, and some are, you know, rounded, and some have corners, and some are ideas that don't go anywhere. They just kind of fall beneath the surface there, and then some intersect. And so I actually used a brush when I did this, because I wanted to incorporate some of the thinking into the process. So I'd never used brush in 35 years that I've been doing this. I've never used the brush, but I used it here, and then I tossed it. And I threw it away. So this is like one painting 35 years with a brush. And then I started thinking about it and said, okay, what is the process of innovation? What does that actually mean? So I started to take that original picture and transform it from analog to digital. So you can still see the rounded ideas and different forms here that you saw in the original. But when you first get an idea, you're kind of swept by it. And I thought it was really cool that it looks like a pretty flower, you know, here. With, if you look really closely, there's a person kind of like this, kind of like looking at the idea with in awe, right? Like you're just swept by it. You're falling in love with the idea, right? And then when you have a little bit of time to figure out what's going on, you put it in practice, and now you have a little bit of distance in time, you know, you're kind of above it. Now you see that what was rounded is really straight, and what was, you know, upside, like right side up is now upside down, and things like that. So things are different than what you thought they would be in the first place. And then what happens when an idea dies, and that feeling of, you know, kind of having to give it up, you know, there's like kind of this, the death of an idea right in here in the circle. But then I thought
the sadness in that,
the sadness, the you know, you don't want to let it go, right? There's a lot of pain, there's a lot of red, kind of like, I don't want to say bleeding, but there's like a bleeding heart for that idea that you lost, you
Yeah.
know.
Mm.
I don't know. I think too much sometimes, you know. But then I thought, this is kind of weird, right? Like, I really need to move this, you know, because when you look at the innovation, there are more things to it, you know. So you have the idea, you have the status quo, right? And this new idea is going to come and it's going to disrupt it, right? Possibly, right? So in this video, before I play the video, I'll kind of show you what's, or actually, you want me to play the video first and then I'll explain it?
Please.
Okay. Okay, so let me tell you what they are, and then we can play the rest of it, the rest of like a minute. So what I wanted to show here is the white is the status quo, right? And then the innovation can be disruptive, which is this big black arm, right? Or it can be iterative, right? And you can see these little kind of echoing iterations here, incremental innovation, right? There are like a little bit of change, but not much. It's not really disrupt. It's actually fading into the status quo here. And then there is the perception, right? The perception of the things, all these little flying triangles, right? Are the information that's coming to you, right? Like the things that you're seeing in the environment, the things that you're processing, the information coming to you. And then you're processing that information, and now you have a perspective. Wow. And that perspective, the way it comes out, moves this innovation. It affects it. Your perspective affects how that innovation is put in place. Right? And then you're kind of in the middle here, right? And then, I don't know if you remember, but you'll see it when I play the rest of it. There is the sound. The sound is actually a part of it because that's the environment. And whatever you're doing, whatever innovation you're coming up with is actually in context of the environment that it's in, right? You can, and so there's an effect of that environment on your idea. And yeah, go ahead.
I noticed the little droplets kind of, go back and up and down, like moving in there, some lines. What are they presenting?
The triangles, you're right. That's a very good observation. They come in and they come out. And that's because sometimes the information that is around you, right? You're absorbing it. And sometimes you're saying, no, this is not for me, right? So it's like you're taking it in or you're pushing it out, right? So yeah, and then you have the white lines, the scratchy lines is also the environment, the things that are happening, the things that are happening in your around you that you have no control over, like it's just around it,
Life happens, right?
Life happens, yeah, where the music is the context.
Yep.
Right, and that changes things, but then there are some things that you can't change, that you don't have control over. So I just had to move that. I had to move it. I couldn't stay still. When I did the digital pieces, I'm like, I wonder if I can move this. And so this came out.
I love it.
You want to see the rest of it?
Yeah.
See the color change?
Yes.
That's to show the change in your perspective and how it affects that innovation you're trying to put in place. And see the triangles coming in, you're like, oh, this is good information, I can use that. And then you see the ones coming out, no, that's not happening.
just like entrepreneurs, right? Just like the entrepreneurs that are us, and
yeah, exactly. So that would be one example. But it was really interesting to talk to Juliet about the whole art group after the fact, because we only had the interview, and then I went on my own and I did it, and then I presented it to her, and it was kind of really great timing, I'll put it that way, because she has a program called Innovate to Die as a coach. And there was something telling her she should actually focus on that more. And then I showed her the artwork and she said, oh my God, I can totally use this. And I'm like, yes. It was just serendipity in that way.
Oh, wow.
You know? So it was just kind of like a nudge for her. So it was really great.
That's great.
And I'm so grateful for her and for that interview, just to be able to create from that. And that one is a great example of continuation of creativity. And to that point earlier, there's no end to it. Sure. There's really no end to it. So you went from a spoken word, Innovate to Die, that Juliet said, and then went into the analog oil painting, and analog oil painting went into digital three pieces, and then from static to motion in a video with the music, with like more modality. So it was pretty cool.
That's amazing. That is amazing. So you've had, you said that a lot of your ideas come from, people that you everywhere, but you interview people, you interview entrepreneurs, all different kinds of subject matter experts. And what is their reaction to the translation of their work into art?
It was great. It's usually because they don't really have input into what I paint. It's sort of like going to a psychic or like a reader of some kind, right? Like, and say, okay, tell me about my life. I'm not going to tell you much about it, but like, you tell me, what do you see? Right. So it's kind of that kind of feel. And that may sound too woo-woo, but it's kind of, that there's a feeling from the interview, that, and I can't paint unless I feel it. So that's why sometimes it does take time to get to that point, but then you're in the flow and it comes out. And then it's like, oh, this is what this wants to be, right? This piece of art wants to be this, and I just need to get out of the way because it comes out, I want to say like subconsciously in a way, you just kind of, it's in the flow for sure. Like when I did Indra's Net, for example, that took several months of talking about it with my friend Label, who wrote a book, The Search, based on Indra's Net, and we talked about it for months. And I modeled it, right? Like I wanted to be Calabi-Yau manifold in 11 dimensions with like quantum physics and all this stuff. That's what I want it to be. But when I start painting, I just remember going outside by the pool, setting up everything and being done. I don't remember the middle. I totally kind of spaced out on it, but it came out the way it came out, and everybody sees Indra throwing the net, so I'm like, that's not what I had in mind. It was a Calabi-Yau manifold in 11 dimensions, but it's subconscious, right? And that's what happens with the interviews too, because I grab onto like one idea, and then I think about it until I can present it on canvas without thinking about it, if that makes sense.
So you talked about different ideas. You're sitting with it, and then it comes. You have to feel it, and then you lose yourself in the middle of the magic. And so, what other bits are part of going from idea to art that you haven't covered with us?
Gratitude is the biggest one. And this may sound woo-woo as well, but it is what it is, So after I do all the research, I talk to people, It may take a long time, maybe short time, maybe long time. But before I get started, I have the idea in my head of what this painting is going to look like. And then I sit in front of it, crisscross applesauce, and I give gratitude to creativity, to art, to the energy, to the artwork that wants to be created and that had chosen me to create it. And we have a dialogue, we have a conversation, and then that's when I start to paint, and those are the best ones. La Paloma that I showed you in the walkthrough, the acceleration of change, the tango dancer,
Right
for
there.
example. Yes. No, this way.
Right there.
Yeah, the green screen, right? That one started as a very abstract, very technical, abstract idea that I wanted to do. It's acceleration of change. I wanted to show that acceleration through form and colors and frequency and things like that. And everything was worked out on that for that painting. I had a drawing, I had a study, I had everything. I was ready to do it. I did it. It was executed exactly how I wanted it. And I looked at it and said, this is cliche. This it's like, meh, okay, so what, And so I scraped it off and I went by the pool and I sat down and I told everybody not to come out, not to let the dog out, not to bother me for an hour. I need to think about this. And then I thought about it for like an hour. What does it feel like when you're faced with accelerated change? What is that feeling? And long story short, what I came up with is the tango between optimism for the future and fear of the unknown. And so that's why you see this dancer, right? She's actually a follower. I talked to somebody who dances, and she said, you chose to do a follower. So she's a follower and you can't see her partner because it's the unknown, right? And she's kind of slightly out of phase. That arm is slightly out of phase because she's in the future and kind of still here, right? She's not sure what's happening, but she has to keep dancing, And what the person told me, the tango dancer told me when she looked at this picture, she's like, what you're painting is a bolo, that kick of her leg. What happens is the partner gives you certain energy when you dance, and then you take that in and you translate that into a movement. And so what the fear of unknown is giving her is bolo, to kick her leg, right? So that's what happens, I think, in real life, in business, and you just have to keep dancing. And then the change is not as drastic, right? Yeah. If you don't have to change is not bad. When you have to change, that's when it's a problem, right? As long as you're driving the change. So that's what happened. Like now we have a La Paloma, but I also made my mom play La Paloma on her accordion. And I listened to Argentinian tango while I was painting it because I wanted to feel the movement in the music.
Nice.
So yeah, so there is a lot of movement in her dress, and yeah, so that's how a lot of it comes out, is like doing those kind of things. It definitely not just like taking my easel and canvas and having a good day, on a picnic or something like that. And it's like enjoyable. Sometimes it's not enjoyable at all, in matter of fact. An example of that is the allegiance, the flag.
Yes.
I don't know if you have time to show you that. Let me know. We can go through that.
That would be a good one to close on.
Okay. So the allegiance is a flag now. And it wasn't a flag to begin with. It was called the compromise. And what I wanted to paint was, when people have everything that they possibly could have, they have good education, they have good family, they have good health, they have a company, they have good lifestyle, and they're still unhappy.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, what the hell do you have to be unhappy about?
Exactly.
Right? Like what makes you unhappy, right? Long story short, I came to a conclusion that all the decisions that we make lead us to this moment,
Yes.
right? Like every decision you ever made led you to where you are right now. But every compromise you made up to that point while you're making those decisions that got you to this right here contribute to your level of happiness. So every time you compromise even a little bit, even if it's just tiny little bit, it leaves a mark. It leaves a scar, right? And then you want it to be somewhere else than you ended up. Even where you ended up is a good situation, it's not where you want it to be.
Yeah.
And so that's where I wanted to paint. And then it ended up being, actually, let me show you that, because that's really, let me see, where is, I'll show you that really quick, because I want to show you the texture of, say, this is the flame. Let's see. The Allegiance would be in the diary collection. This is the website, so you can go. This is probably the best place to see the artwork if you want to see it.
And
But
we'll post
here's-
that information so that you can go in and really at your own leisure take a look at all her art. It's magnificent.
Yeah. So this is the Allegiance, and so it's very textured.
Oh yeah.
So what I wanted to do is like all those little compromises you made, tiny little compromises that you made, that that just bleed. It's an open wound, even it's little. And then you can see here there is an X where you want it to be, and then there is a box here where you paint yourself in because of the decisions that you made.
Interesting.
And then what happened with that is that I had to face my own compromises, and it took like 3 weeks or something to go through that and be okay with the compromises and level of unhappiness that I was feeling personally. So then George Floyd was murdered, and I looked at it, and it was just, the whole painting was crying. It was like all red, crying, and I said, I'll just make a flag out of it. And so then it became the allegiance to your values. Yeah, and it's sort of a political statement. It wasn't meant as a political statement, but that's how it ended up. So you just kind of never know, kind of idea for an idea for an idea, what the message is at the end of the day. So
it's a real fascinating story, really.
Oh my God.
And
yeah,
I'm curious, what happened to the artwork that you have created?
yeah, some of it, sells, people buy it. Sometimes the people who inspired it buy it, and sometimes other people buy it. But what I love to do with it is again, continuation of creativity, right? So I have the podcast, I Paint Ideas podcast, so I can talk about those ideas and people who inspire me and things like that on the podcast. And then there is a Contemplations in Art Medium publication, where I like to talk about how the art changes me as an artist, things like that. There'll be a book coming out for this collection, and then for every collection, just to talk about the art, the idea behind the art, what it means, why it came about, who inspired it, and things like that. So I just like to keep on going with it, because it's not the end of it, like Innovation or Die, you can see like different modalities of it, and you just keep going with it, because people need to know those ideas, especially for thought leaders that are inspirational.
Sure.
So how does a potential client contact you?
They would have to, you mean to paint their ideas?
Yes.
Yeah, so there is the application form and more information about it at ipaintideas.com. and it would have to be a synergy, right? Because I paint by feel, so it has to be a good match. So I take applications. If you want to get your work turned into a work of art, just apply, and then we'll go from there. But
Yeah.
it usually takes 4 to 6 months to do, because I like to interview the person.
Sure.
And then that becomes part of the podcast as well. So it's giving a little bit of shout out to the inspiration, right, to the client. And then after that, I produce the art, and then we have the art show. So it would be more of a presentation of their ideas as well. So it's kind of trying to make it a win-win.
Sure.
And then they have an option to buy it or not, at the end, because it's not a traditional commission to where you say, I want this size, I want these colors, I want this, bowl of fruit or whatever, still life or whatever it is. It's my interpretation of what I heard in that interview. So they may not like it, but they usually love it. Everybody loved it so far. So, but that's why I make it so they don't have to buy if they don't like it.
And prints are available, right? If people
Yes.
go through your gallery and they go, oh my God, I want a print of that.
Yes.
Yes.
They're limited. They're all limited edition prints. There's only 50 of each.
Wow.
So they won't be printed, and some are sold out already. So it just depends which one you like.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we definitely want to be able to share your information with those who are present and those who might be taking a look at the replay. So how can people get a hold of you, and if they're interested in a print?
You can write an email to sales@daeuArt.com. That would be the best. That goes to the right person. Sales@daeuart.com. Yeah, that would be good for prints or any purchase related. Yeah, but if they want their own artwork, I Paint Ideas commission, then they should go to ipaintideas.com and apply and fill out the application. No, this is no obligation. You don't have to put a credit card in or anything. You just submit your information, and then we take it from there.
Wonderful. You repurpose so much of the whole process with showcasing the entrepreneur, the art, then you have the prints, then there's just what a magical experience that you offer. And one of the things that you mentioned is just the sound, like I love you, beautiful, and how that turns into just this beautiful painting. How do you create that sound?
The recordings?
Yes, the recordings.
I record for example, that I love you, beautiful example. I recorded my own voice because I wanted it to be my voice signature. And then I took an image of the waveform of the heat. It's a heat map of that waveform. And then I abstracted it digitally. So that's how it turned out. But there are a few other examples that are kind of very interesting because I made everybody record something for me. I asked my husband to record something, and he was like, just leave me alone. I'm like, that's it. You have to record leave me alone, because that's a great one, So I made him do it, and at first he was just like, just leave me alone, just stop this, So I directed him a little bit, and then he did a really good job emotionally to put emotion into it. And he said it 3 times, leave me alone, leave me alone, leave me alone. And we turned that into, do you want to see it? Do we have time?
Yeah, let's see it.
I'm curious now.
Yeah,
it's got everybody curious. So
let's see.
This will be a great way to.
This is turn your life's work into work of art. So this is where you would go to apply for things, and it's going to tell you all the process and everything. But let me see if we can go back to the sounds. Yeah, I got obsessed actually with it a little bit, a little bit. So this is this is Leave Me Alone, and it's kind of
Oh,
interesting because you can see almost like a
Yes.
profile of
Yeah.
somebody sort of being angry and
Yep.
sort of there's certain energy about it. Yeah, and then this one is interesting too. This is my dog. I recorded my dog, Miss Bailey. That's her name, Miss Bailey, barking, because I wanted to teach her how to bark on command, you know, speak command. And so you can see her barking 3 times here. You can, you know, and then 3 times here.
Wow.
And there's like a profile of a dog, which is so weird. You know, that's why I'm so obsessed with it, you know. This one here, I made my mom play music on her accordion again. And this is a very traditional Italian song, Marina, and it's a love song. And the person the guy singing it says, Marina, marry me, don't leave me, and that kind of stuff. And so you can see almost like a couple, you know, there's like a story.
Yes.
So that's actually the sound of the song, you know.
That's beautiful.
And what I'm looking forward to doing is you know, a first cry of a baby born, or like wedding vows, or because I thought that would be kind of cool to have a picture of your wedding vows. That'd be different. Or like I think Pat, you suggested you know, a baseball, you know, hitting a baseball out of the park and then the crowd going crazy. I think that would be super interesting. So yeah, but I was making everybody do something.
That's gorgeous.
Thanks.
and not only that, it's so very unique and memorable, and bear so many different special meanings in each and every one of them, in and emotions too.
Yeah, and that's what it is. Art is emotion, you know. And it's so great. Art is everything to me, you know, and everything is art, you know.
With that, thank you so very much, Daeu. You have completely really opened our eyes and enrich our lives with your art, including sound, and that's just such a treat. Thank you very much. And audience, please go to Daeu's gallery to check it out.
Thanks so very much.
Awesome.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, thank you for being here with us one more time.
Of course. So
Pat, we got our next show tentatively scheduled June 30th. And what are we going to be talking about?
We're going to be talking about technology. We're going to be talking about security as it relates to your people's companies, right?
Yeah, small business.
And we have a guest who that's her bailiwick. Her subject matter expertise is security. So it's great to be able to talk about technology, because Pearl and I come from, and Daeu all come from a technology industry.
Yes.
And we have someone here that's just going to talk about technology. So you'll have to tune in.
Absolutely. So until then, good night, everyone, and take care.
Good night.